have been actually able to recover a few $1 million of assets for people who either lost their assets in a way that they did some kind of a self-inflicted loss on themselves, messed up something with their wallets, or actually from thefts. I think you may heard about the Bybit hack, which was like $1.5 billion, like equivalent of that in Ethereum. And it's called like the biggest money heist in history. That's how Ethereum does multi-signature. They do it with smart contracts. This is different from how we do multi-signature on Bitcoin. Their CEO said like our cold storage was attacked like this, and like everybody in the Bitcoin space was like saying, dude, that's not cold storage. When you sign transactions and as soon as you sign the transaction, this transaction gets sent on the internet, that's not cold storage. But like I have a lot of crazy stories actually. It's not only the impersonators or the scammers. Like the biggest your stack becomes, you need to put more and more, like with more Bitcoin comes more responsibility here.
For a few people that might not know you, who are you and why are you into Bitcoin?
Well, I've been in the Bitcoin space for a really long time. I consider myself as mostly a Bitcoiner. So I've been like building communities, building, like writing down a lot of resources, recording a lot of educatory material on YouTube, podcasts. I've been doing all sorts of stuff in the space for mostly, to be specific, in the Middle Eastern community, and to be even more specific, mostly for the Iranian community, which is like the community that I was participating most of the time. And I've been in the space since 2017, a few months before the August soft fork for SegWit. And that was one of the first things that actually fascinated me about Bitcoin and how decentralized it is and how it works. And that just got me in the space. And I've been like, since I've been doing a lot of educatory material, there was a lot of consulting requests, and I've been doing a lot of consulting for like security, privacy, and all sorts of like Bitcoin solutions. And I've been working on these things, security, Bitcoin security, and research. I've been working with a lot of open source tools, and actually sometimes even contributing to them to make them like make the community grow even more, because they are like one of the most fascinating and amazing things about Bitcoin, actually, to see people putting the time and effort to write so much of an excellent and secure code. And like as much as I can, I would always help them and try to get more and more people on board to using them, especially like considering the security precautions of like Bitcoin is worth a lot these days. So it's like, I don't know the price right now. It's $80,000. I don't know, $90,000 or something like that. So a few years ago, we were always saying that you gotta learn more about Bitcoin security and you have to secure your Bitcoin setup, because you will need it, since probably Bitcoin will reach big numbers in the future. And you need to like start this early, just in case if Bitcoin's price goes up and you cannot then afford to lose your Bitcoin. And this is the case right now. These days, there's so many great security solutions out there. And I am happy to participate in the community for building security products and things like that, and like consult people on that.
Yeah, it's super interesting when we talk about self-custody and the security solutions. I always try to tell people, if Bitcoin would 10x tomorrow, would you still be comfortable with your self-custody setup? Because I think most people have not thought it through really good, and they have some big security holes in their solutions. And if they would think about, oh, what if I don't know, let's say I hold 50,000 euros in Bitcoin. What if it would be 500,000 euros? Would you think differently about your security solution? Most people probably think differently then, and would maybe invest a little bit more time or money into doing a really good security solution. So I think I like the way of, hey, what if that thing you're securing here is a way more worth than previously. But before we get into security and all that, I usually talk with either Americans, Europeans, sometimes Canadians and Australians. So we really don't get a lot of insights in the Middle Eastern community, honestly. The Ruspe was on and some other people, but like not too many. What's going on currently, Middle Eastern community in Bitcoin? How does the grassroots movement look like? How does the politics look at Bitcoin and all that things?
Yeah, that's actually a rather big topic. So if I want to start with the community, it would be like it's very cool. It's kind of different. The requirements for these communities usually are different from others. So a few years ago, we were always talking about how Bitcoin will be a better test if it is being utilized, or if it is actually something that matters. It would be better in environments like Middle East, and especially places that are like under heavy financial restrictions. And that's where like sometimes Alex Gladstein comes into the picture when he talks about like check about the thing that he always says, like check your financial privilege, because there's so many places on earth that they don't have the financial privilege of the Western communities and the Western people. And that's the case. If you want to see it, how Bitcoin, how important of a thing Bitcoin could be, you should definitely take a look at these places and see, like when people are facing a lot of inflation, a lot of censorship, and a lot of like financial exclusion, what would they be doing? And that's where Bitcoin is actually shining. And like a lot of people look at Bitcoin probably in the best way to look at, which is like Bitcoin could be utilized as something that will give you a lot more financial freedom. It could offer you a lot of the benefits that you have not actually experienced before. You could do global transactions, send money abroad, send money all over the world, and also store the value of your work and your time and efforts you have put, because a lot of the local and national currencies in some parts of Middle East actually, not all of them, but are very subject to inflation, especially if we refer to the Iranian community, because there is like a crazy amount of inflation there going on, and that's something where like Bitcoin is really shining for people. Like they really love it there. But with like just like with all other communities, there's a lot of like crypto stuff and shitcoining happening also. There's a lot of like scams, hacks, attacks, all sorts of stuff happening, which is kind of the usual case for everywhere. So it is to be expected. But this is like one of the coolest thing about the Middle Eastern part of the Middle Eastern audience of Bitcoin. That's they understand Bitcoin and they get it much more than the Westerners. It's like, yeah, this is cool. This is something that we actually need. And they use Bitcoin. A lot of people have Bitcoin. They have started like building businesses, like startups, companies, things like that about Bitcoin and how to use it. They also use a lot of stable coins, which is still the case for many parts of the world again, but which is like you cannot ignore the fact that stable coins are kind of convenient to use for some people. So we like, as much as we love to talk about Bitcoin and consider the most important thing, which is it is, well, like this is something that we cannot ignore. Actually, this is something that happens. So people do use stable coins and they use them a lot. And well, in the Iranian community, to be more specific to that part of the Middle East, well, a lot of people just get their hands on Bitcoin or actually any other coin, not only Bitcoin, just for the fact, unfortunately, on any other coin, because like they do like get like a lot of coins get promoted as get rich quick schemes. So people would consider that if I buy this, I may get rich quickly. And the case is that the reason that there's a lot of attraction and a lot of attention to cryptocurrencies in a place like, let's say, Iran, it would be due to the fact that they have been suffering from inflation for a really long time, that they have forgotten how a better asset looks like. So whenever they see something that holds value better than their national currency, which is like basically anything, it's like you could take anything, just name it, and it's gonna hold value better than their national currency. So they just get onboarded. So it doesn't matter. So inflation have driven them to invest their hard-earned money into something that could be better than their fiat currency. And it doesn't matter if it's Bitcoin, stable coins, or shit coins that may dump. Even the shit coins that may dump may prove better than the fiat currency there. So that's why a lot of people you don't need to sell it to them. It's like they understand it. If it's not the fiat currency, it's probably worth like holding your money in. So that's the case with the Iranian community and also the other communities that deal with a lot of inflation. But for like some other parts, like in Dubai, it's there's a lot of people talking about how big of a crypto hub, or actually, yeah, that's what they say. So it's the crypto hub, they call it. But I'm seeing like more and more and more Bitcoiners coming to this part of the region because how it's much more friendlier than other parts of the world towards Bitcoin, and you could like do business, and it's easier to set up a Bitcoin business here, and all sorts of stuff like that similar to it. So it is, and also it is very efficient on the tax side. So that's what have made a lot of global and Western Bitcoiners also actually reach this part of the world and like get involved more. So there's actually a very cool Bitcoin community in Dubai too. So and a lot of those people you have probably met before, or you have even had them on your podcast. So it is a nice community that is growing here. That's also something very interesting about the community, crypto, actually the Bitcoin community here in this region of the world.
Yeah, and you where are you in Dubai, or?
I'm based in Dubai right now. Yeah.
Interesting. And I also love the fact that you said the inflation drives people to basically anything that holds value better, which is almost everything if inflation is bad. And I've seen this over and over again with Argentina, with all the different places where you can basically have, or like Turkey, where you have such a bad inflation, where people, you drive them to be crazy. You drive them to meme coins that have absolutely no value at all. And you're like, oh, like, okay, I put money in there. Oh, it made like I don't know, a 10x in a short period of time. That's, I guess, the level I have to play with. And people forgot how to save. They unlearn how to actually save money and just build a future for themselves, which is very, very, very sad to see. And Bitcoin kind of wants to bring that back. And I hope we can overcome that to a certain extent, and we can get back to saving and Bitcoin and not the craziness and the shitcoinery and the meme coins where there's just no value and people just speculate.
Yeah, so it is like that. So, and I know there's like, so this one is kind of difficult probably to explain, but so the amount of Bitcoiners and shitcoiners in the Western communities, maybe like, let's say, just throw a number. So let's just say it's one Bitcoiner to every 9 shitcoiners. here it would be more Bitcoiners because there's more people who understand Bitcoin. It's like it's like, okay, shitcoins, that's something that you could like do all kinds of activities like gambling they do with it, like they call it trading, but it's like basically gambling. So you could do that with it, but they do understand Bitcoin more here because like they get pushed towards it because like you're gonna have more Bitcoiners learning about Bitcoin from governments rather than from other Bitcoiners and YouTubers and podcasters. So it's like they hear about Bitcoin, they see the value in it, and they just stick to it because it's very easy for them to, because they were actually waiting for something like Bitcoin to just come across their path. So that's how I could see it. And it is like there's a lot of like good Bitcoiners in the space that are not actually known in the global communities, but they are actually doing a lot of work. They're doing, so I call like education as God's work. So, and they're doing God's work here, actually writing stuff, translating. Actually, this may be surprising to you, but there's so many open source content, like publicly free, available in the like, let's say, the Iranian Bitcoin community, that you may be surprised. And like most of the books, most of the articles, most of the good content in the global community, in the Western community mostly, are translated and provided to everyone in the Iranian community. Like I know of one of the latest efforts is like some of the people are actually collaborating with each other to translate Lynn Alden's book, and they're actually releasing it chapter by chapter. Obviously, like they did get the consent from the writer. So, and there's all sorts of book, like even some podcasts get translated and published and sent out to other people. And there's a huge community just waiting for these content, and they are hungry for more and more content to be translated to their local language, and they just start reading it and consuming this content. So it is very cool that there is not much sponsoring or payments, or not much like actually funding that goes into this kind of a content generation about Bitcoin in this part of the world. Is actually there's zero. So content funding or things like that, but it is very, very active, and it is like thriving. There's so many people like translating a lot of the Bitcoiny books in the space, and you get surprised to see that. So it is kind of cool.
Why is there no content funding?
Because, well, that's their own. So you cannot like fund content like easily for the Iranians. That like there's so many like sanction laws and things like that. So you won't be seeing a player in the space to fund the production of content for the Iranian community, unless like the content like gets produced like overseas or something, and then gets actually distributed in Iran. So there's all sorts of limitations like that, and everybody just, so they just took the job on themselves, and they're doing it without like waiting for someone to fund their work. So, but they're doing like a great job. So there's one project that is called BitcoinD.me, and it's the biggest repository of Persian translated content for Bitcoin. And it's like there's so many books, like the Block Size War, like Inventing Bitcoin from Pritzker. There's the article from Vijay. There's few episodes from Stefan's podcast. There's all sorts of books and guides on Lightning, on node management, on security, on privacy. It is like very, very cool. And you see, this is all an open source, like collaborative effort, which is like sometimes the collaborators are anonymous.
Super cool. Yeah. I just want, because I love like probably all educators and content creators start out with not making money. I rarely saw a project where they got pre-funded in the content creation space, but it's hard to keep going if you have no funding. Maybe it's in Bitcoin easier if you have been in Bitcoin earlier, so Bitcoin itself kind of can fund you. So that was just that's interesting. So there's basically the law is in the way. So legally they cannot get funded, and there's restrictions. Interesting. But it's great that it's still there. Like that the space is really good even without the funding, because obviously if you see, even this podcast gets funded and has sponsors and partners. Otherwise I couldn't just do it. Like it's my full-time job now. And it's like, if I have no funding at all, I would still do it, but not every day. I would probably do it like once a week, something like that. So I couldn't do it, with that high of quality and that high of quantity. So it definitely helps. But it's great to see that there is a community that just does it because it's an important job to do, even if they have to find funds for their lives somewhere else. And also you wrote me that you investigated scams a lot, and there's so many scams going on. And I see I'm not investigating scams, but I see so many scams because my Telegram gets used, my Twitter gets used with impersonating, and people sending me all the screenshots when someone tries with an impersonating account, how they getting scammed. And it's really crazy how good they get and how good they are with social engineering. What kind of scams are you investigating for Bitcoin security?
Yeah, so that's actually one cool part of the things that I've been doing for a long time now. I've been actually, okay, you just made that point, so it's much easier for me to explain now. You just said that people do contact you about these things. That was also the reason for me that I was like being contacted like hundreds of times for people who got hacked, scammed, or actually lost money, even due to like self-inflicted loss. So, like people losing their 24 words, or like messing up something on their wallet, or doing something like that. So I've been receiving like thousands of them probably over the years. And I've been in the space for a long time, so I've seen like at least probably 2,000-3,000 messages and requests, and I've been trying to respond to many of them. Obviously, not all of them. That's kind of impossible to do, but I've been responding to a lot of them. And over the years, I gained the experience of how like the scammers and the hackers and other cases of like bad misfortunes or bad situations that could happen to people. And since I was receiving a lot of these messages and requests, I started like telling people about them and even producing some content about it on my YouTube channel at that time. And there was a lot of interest in that. A lot of people were audience for that, and I've started just digging more into these kind of things. So, sometimes I even I have a lot of crazy stories. Actually, it's not only the impersonators or the scammers, or I don't know, nowadays, like in the last 2 years or so, there's also a very popular method of scamming that is called like pig butchering scam, which is kind of a very like odd and strange and wild name, which is sort of a sophisticated, these call requests, sending messages, kind of a scam. Like people send you a message, they tell you, "Are you interested to invest?" But that's kind of easy to detect nowadays. Pig butchering is like this kind of a scam, but 2.0 is like the better version. So it's like they send you a message, they engage in communication and conversation for a long time with you to get your trust. They even send you like voice messages, pictures. They get on video calls with you actually. So it's like you trust them. So it's like they gain your trust and then they do the same scam. And then there's this platform, you could invest in it. And now you have gained the victim's trust. So that's what they do. Most of these scams are operated as like big organized crime in Southeast Asia mostly. So it's not limited to that part of the world, but it's mostly operated there, which is kind of an interesting topic on its own. You could like look it up, see it more. It's been happening a lot, quite a lot lately in the last 1 or 2 years. And there's been all sorts of like crazy stuff that I followed up. I've been actually able to recover a few $1 million of assets for people who either lost their assets in a way that they did some kind of a self-inflicted loss on themselves, messed up something with their wallets, or actually from thefts. So there has been like thieves that I've been I've worked on cases where I caught some thieves, which was like kind of cool and thrilling to do, to find that. And in order to do that, I actually utilize a lot of my knowledge in like the Bitcoin technicalities. It's like there's a lot of transaction attributes. There's a lot of things on the Bitcoin network that you could look at and study and analyze and get to a result from. Like there's so many attributes. There's so many things that it's like it's basically a financial network which is publicly available. So you could consider, like, you could think about all the things that you could do. Is like somebody gets access to you, like a colleague or someone who is malicious and takes your funds away, tricks you, maybe installs a spyware, a malware. They get incentivized because they know like you have like probably a few Bitcoin that's worth a lot. So they get incentivized. They install something malicious on your firmware when you're on your lunch break, on your computer or something, and then they take your money away whenever they get the chance to. But like it is kind of interesting to know that most of these people could be easily caught because they're not like very sophisticated and advanced like attackers. So they don't have like the best knowledge in like hiding and obfuscating the funds. So it is kind of interesting to follow up on them and what they do with it. And once you get a clue and you follow that clue or lead, it becomes to a lead. The lead becomes probably into some evidence, and the evidence could take that person to court. And like at that time, the asset gets seized if they're willing to give back the assets. And that was like one of the most thrilling and interesting things that I've been doing in the last few years. And I'm always interested in such things because it is like kind of interesting for anyone. It's like you're doing police and detective work without needing to be a police, because all the data is out there publicly available. Recently, I've been working mostly on following the Bybit hackers. I think you may heard about the Bybit hack, which was like $1.5 billion, like equivalent of that in Ethereum. And it's called like the biggest money heist in history. It's very big. It's like $1,500 million. So that's a lot of money for people who may not grasp the sheer amount of that. And it is to be like, it's affiliated with DPRK affiliated hackers. And I've been following on that, doing all sorts of research, because these hackers now are very organized in laundering the money. And it is like it is kind of interesting to try to find how they are structuring and automating their money laundering and to find out about like what they're doing. And in order to do that, you need to be aware of all sorts of technical stuff about like Bitcoin transactions, addresses, Bitcoin data, and build the data, analyze it, put some like put some methods for tracing the money in new ways that these attackers who got away with the money now may want to launder it. So there's all sorts of interesting stuff happening right now at this moment that we're talking. They're very prolific in their work, and it's a lot of money to launder. So it takes a lot of time for them to do that. And it is quite an interesting research that I've been doing in the last few weeks that I have actually get a lot of findings from, which I may not be able to disclose all of them. So just for that, like the tip off principle, so you won't tip them off. But there's a lot of findings, and some of the Bitcoin businesses in the ecosystem, I've been communicating with them, providing them with the findings that are related to them. So they would know how to mitigate this to stop their services from being used by these hackers. So it's kind of thrilling and very adventurous kind of a thing to do, to follow on this big money heist and see what they're doing with the money, and just get some knowledge from it, just get some more experience, spread awareness about it and things like that.
I love it. You are our Bitcoin detective now.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, and I had a lot of success actually recovering money before. So now it's like in the last year or so, I'm like upgrading my research and investigation stuff to big players, like the organized kind of big teams that are doing a lot of hacking, which is like one of them is the Bybit hacker right now. So it's like, okay, the small cases are easier nowadays for me. So let's get to the bigger ones and see what we can find.
Let's take a break for a moment and appreciate the beauty that Coin Vigilante has made with the Bitcoin watches. Those watches are the most amazing, the most elegant way of showing that you are a true Bitcoiner. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. And now if you have Bitcoin, I really do hope that you don't have it on exchange. But if you do have it on exchange, I have two ways for you to deal with that. The first way is you put it on a hardware wallet. That's the entry for you to get into the self-custody game. I recommend BitBox, Bitcoin only edition for that. It's a super simple and secure way. And if you check out the link in the description, you even get 5% off if you use the code Robin. And the second way is the Bitcoin Way. The Bitcoin Way is your all-in partner in terms of how to get the most out of your sovereignty. They will personalize for you a self-custody setup that is perfect for your individual situation. They will show you how you can secure your own devices. Securing your Bitcoin is not enough. You also have to keep all your devices secure. One topic that is overlooked often is the inheritance plan. What happens with your Bitcoin once you are no longer here? Do you have a plan for that in place already? And last but not least, if you're in the jurisdictions where you don't feel safe, it's better to get a plan B. For all that, head over to thebitcoinway.com/Robin to get a 30-minute free call. And just a quick side note, I will be for the first time ever speaking at the Bitcoin Prague event in June. It will be absolutely legendary, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you there. You can get your ticket in the link down in the description of Bitcoin Bitcoin Prague. And very important, use code Robin to get 10% off your ticket. I'm really looking forward seeing you there. Maybe because I think most in the Bitcoin space probably heard about Bybit or read about it in the news. But as you investigated, it would be really fun to hear what actually happened, because it's so much money. It's really hard to understand that just like one group just got that money. It's not his like, oh yeah, they stole 2 Bitcoin somewhere or stuff like that. It's like, it's a lot of Bitcoin. It's a lot of money. How did this happen, and what have you gathered so far?
Yeah, so what happened, in the first forensic report that Bybit actually published with the collaboration with a few forensic teams, it was like the North Korean, like they call it like DPRK, North Korean affiliated hackers. They call them Lazarus. They call them Traitor, which is like the sub-brand of Lazarus. So it's kind of difficult to pinpoint which name we should be using, but let's call it the Bybit exploiter. So the Bybit exploiter have gained access to some servers or things like that. I don't want to get very technical, super technical, and it is not the most important thing how exactly the technicalities, how they carried out the attack. It's more important for us as Bitcoiners, people in the space who use Bitcoin, to know how to protect against the attacks by sticking to some standards. Because this is what I always tell people. There's a million ways of that you may be attacked. Also, there's a million other ways that have not been yet discovered. And you cannot go over all the million ways. So what you can do is to stick to the very fewer standard and best practice work that you can do to just mitigate all the millions of ways that you could be attacked. So that's what I talk about. So it's like they got access to some servers. They did change some of the things you see on the screen. What Bybit was using was a multi-signature wallet called Safe Wallet on Ethereum, and that in order to use that wallet, few of the executives from Bybit, including their CEO and co-founder, needed to approve signatures for money to be spent. And what they did, the Bybit exploiter, what their team did was to show something different on the screen, and the Bybit people thought that they're moving something standard, a routine work procedure, like they're moving some amount of Ethereum, but they were signing a very malicious transaction instead, which was a transaction to change the ownership of that smart contract. Like that's how Ethereum does multi-signature. They do it with smart contracts. This is different from how we do multi-signature on Bitcoin, which is like quite different. And it's offline. It's on the computer. You do it, finalize it on the computer rather than on the public blockchain with the smart contract. So they took ownership, which is like kind of strange for us in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Like, what do you mean by taking ownership of a multi-signature wallet? Because like you could grant permissions to anyone you want, actually, and any quorum of signers to be able to spend money. That's how like Safe Wallet works. And why didn't they detect it on their hardware wallets? Because they were using hardware wallets actually. To be more specific, I think most of them use ledgers. Here's a ledger. And because like for smart contract related transactions on Ethereum, it shows a message called a blind signature, blind signing process, because it's like a hash of a data you sign. It's not the exact data, and the clueless wallet does not know what is signing, and you cannot understand what you're signing because it just shows some gibberish on the wallet screen. And this is something that we could like just take some good hits on Ethereum for having that even Ledger says accept risk and sign, because it doesn't know what you're signing, because you cannot see what you're signing on the Ledger screen. And that's how it was happened. So there was a different thing you see on the screen. You're sending a normal Ethereum transaction, but it is actually changing the ownership of the smart contract. And they approved it because they just didn't have enough standard secure procedures. Because first they needed to do cold storage, probably. That's also something interesting. Their CEO said like our cold storage was attacked like this, and like everybody in the Bitcoin space was like saying, dude, that's not cold storage. When you sign transactions, and as soon as you sign the transaction, this transaction gets sent on the internet. That's not cold storage. The cold storage happens on an offline computer. So they were like signing with online systems and signing something that they couldn't see on this screen of Ledger, because it didn't, like, that's how smart contracts in Ethereum work. So you cannot understand what you're signing actually on the screen here. And the transaction was relayed in the network, and then the hackers were able to take over all the funds in that Ethereum multi-signature wallet, which was a lot of money, 1.5 billion. And then they started doing, so I'm talking about Ethereum, but I was like talking about like Bitcoin ecosystem stuff. So the hackers started the operations, and they have been moving a lot of money around, a lot of money with a lot of transactions. There's like probably 15,000 Bitcoin addresses associated with this operation of money laundering at this moment that we're speaking. And it's like, and this happened actually 2 months ago. So they have used only like 15,000 Bitcoin addresses up to this moment to just launder the money, to just move fast. And so others won't catch up to them, like investigators, researchers like me won't catch up to them. And they're moving funds fast. They're moving it to all sorts of destinations. They do coin joins, they do swaps, they do like cross-chain swapping, like they go to Ethereum, they go back from Ethereum to Bitcoin, they go from Bitcoin to Solana, from Solana to Bitcoin. They do all sorts of crazy stuff. And it's like they just don't want you to be tracking them. So that's how they increase the cost of investigating and researching them this way. And they've been doing this. They have, I could say, probably successfully laundered probably about $100 million up to this moment. But don't quote me on that. It's like just observations, not hard fact. And but there's a lot more to be laundered, and which I'm actually keeping a track on. There's a lot of all other teams. It's not only me. There's so many other teams that are looking to this. Actually, there's a bounty out there for this. So if you are able to help confiscate or freeze some of these funds, you gotta get 10% of the frozen funds. So that's also a motivation and incentive for people who want to research more. And if there's any researchers who are interested in this, feel free to hit me up. We're gonna talk about this.
Yeah, 10% can be a lot of money in that case. If there's if there's a few 100 millions now frozen, there is probably like $1 billion left to still discover, and 10% of that. I mean, obviously it will be very hard because it seems like they're very sophisticated. It's actually, how long have they been working on that before, or on that? Do you have any hints of like how prepared they are doing that? How long such a thing takes, and how long have they been observing how they operate in Bybit? Because they need obviously information how they are doing things, right?
Yeah, that's something that there have been a lot of criticism towards Bybit, that they have not been the most transparent about. We are not completely sure how the whole thing happened, because Bybit hasn't publicly announced many things about that. So there's like very few introductory reports from forensic teams, but there's no like complete reports that show when their infiltration happened, how the infiltration happened completely. We don't know, like at the first day that the attack happened. Even I was one of the people who thought that, okay, this has to be some kind of an insider job, because like, okay, how do you get access to so many? You need, like, you're tricking a lot of signers. Look, there's five, I don't know, four co-signers that you need to attack all at the same time to be able to actually trick all of them to approve this transaction. So that's going to be very difficult to do. And the only one who could get access to many people in the same organization, it would be like someone from the same organization. So that was like one of the first thoughts that I had. But like seeing how things are going on and what's happening is like, it's probably not an insider job. And it's probably something that Bybit needs to talk more about, and so we could understand what exactly happened and how they got some of these accesses from their usual MO, which is like modus operandi, which means like fancy way of saying like their mode of operations. They usually do all sorts of social engineering attacks to like get access to some of the systems. Like they send emails, affected like malicious emails, links, things like that to people who work in the organization, and then start building their way up to get the accesses they need. So that's probably the thing that happened. Like some of the colleagues or employees there, or some of the executives got attacked by spear phishing or some kind of a sophisticated social engineering attack to have like some kind of a malware or something like that installed on their systems, and then they started the operation. But it's like, I would be very interested to read a lot of details about the attacks, if there's these details, if they get out.
Super interesting to see that. Yeah, and also I think people have celebrated that they have converted things to Bitcoin, but it was just about covering the tracks, or was there also something like, oh, like we want it in the end of the day in Bitcoin, or they just converting it to covering the track? Because I've read some things after it happened, oh, like they are converting everything to Bitcoin because they know Ethereum is a shitcoin.
It does have, like, I also think that it does have some sense in it, especially like if I was the attacker, and if I wanted to hold these funds for a really long time until I can launder it little by little over time, I wouldn't like to hold that much money on Ethereum probably. And I wouldn't like to, like, this is also from an investment part of things, because like it's Ethereum, it's not gonna, you're gonna lose money probably if you hold Ethereum for a really long time. And it's also that I probably would need better like privacy tools and tool set, and a lot of liquidity at the same time. And this will be offered by Bitcoin better than Ethereum. So it's better to use Bitcoin if you were the Bybit exploiter. One also other cool, interesting thing about this is that the Bybit exploiter cannot easily launder Ethereum and off-ramp it to cash, probably. So it's easier to off-ramp Bitcoin, sell Bitcoin and get cash, because like at the end, cash is king, and they will use cash at the end. And the best tool actually to like what is the widest and most common asset that is being traded probably for cash all over the world at this moment, like crypto wise? It's probably Bitcoin and USDT. It's one of these two. Or it's like either one of them, or these are the top two. So It's either Bitcoin or you swap Ethereum to Bitcoin and then move Bitcoin around, move it through CoinJoin, move it through different sorts of things. So you would obfuscate the track and then go back to, I don't know, Ethereum or Tron or something like that and make it USDT, because USDT can freeze the funds. So they want to cover that part. So they won't be, their funds won't be frozen. And then they swap the USDT easily for cash, because it is like widely, this is kind of a widely accepted things all over the world, and like in Southeast Asia, in Middle East, probably less in Europe or places like that, because like there's less cash flow funds of cash in probably in Europe. I'm not very sure about that, but it's much less than other parts of the world, and that's how probably they move it to cash. So they prefer probably USDT because there's like everybody accepts it everywhere. Okay, I just figured out that probably people from USDT Tether won't like what I'm saying right now, and but it's okay, and we know that, I know for sure that USDT and Tether are working so hard to stop these kind of operations, and they have been actually collaborating with Bybit under, and also with TRM Labs and Tron under financial crime unit named T3, which is like Tether, Tron, and TRM, and they've been like freezing a lot of assets. So they're doing a good job at that front, but it's like it doesn't like mean that then this is not happening. It is happening, and they use USDT and they use Bitcoin because these two could be easily, like much easier than others, converted to cash.
It's super interesting because I think we can all learn things from that. What have you actually, from investigating so many different scams and also being really, really clever on self-custody and security, what have you learned so far how people can better protect themselves when they already have self-custody? So obviously, if you have an exchange, there's whole different attack vectors, and it's probably easier. But if they have cold storage, if they have self-custody cold storage, where they sign transactions, and let's say someone is actually having a good setup where they have multi-signature. So someone is actually put in the work, has a multi-signature setup. What have you learned to make those things even more secure, and figure out how to not get scammed and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting topic actually to discuss, and it is very important for Bitcoiners. It's much less important for shitcoiners. I don't think that you would have a lot of like shitcoin audience, because like you're a Bitcoiner just like me, and like I'm wearing Bitcoin orange right now. So shitcoiners do not care. It's like they don't care about security. Most of the tools that they use is like they're rubbish. Like I've been experimenting with a lot of tools and software, so I know for a fact that they don't care, because if they cared, they would have better tools on their hands, but they don't have good tools for security. But Bitcoiners, come on, there's a lot of good tools out there. There's multi-signature, there's all sorts of stuff, there's all sorts of good content about, and also like security material that you can read about and read and learn from. And the first thing that I would say is like to do this, just learn more about it, because you're gonna need it. Like digital security, not only your Bitcoin security, digital security as the how do you say this? Like the bigger umbrella term here has become very, very important in the last 10 to 15 years. And it's not only because of your Bitcoin. If you have Bitcoin, now it's inevitable for you. It's like very, very important for you to do that as soon as possible. But if you have, even if you don't have Bitcoin, or if you have small amount of Bitcoin, like digital security, is very important these days. It's not it's a hard fact right now. So you need to learn. And one of the first important things that you need to learn about is that security all comes down to how much security do you need, and in like you need to adjust all the time. So if you want to protect, like, let's say $100 of assets, that's not something that you need to pay a big amount to secure it. You don't need to put a lot of effort to secure it, right? But as like the biggest your stack becomes, you need to put more and more. Like with more Bitcoin comes more responsibility here. So there's more responsibility to protect your assets. So the more Bitcoin you have, the more. So it's not only because, like, for some people in the world, if one Bitcoin is very, very, very valuable. For some people in other parts of the world, like 10 Bitcoin would be less valuable for them, because it's just like that's how much they value the assets they have. It all depends on how much you value, and if you value your Bitcoin a lot, you need to put a lot of time, effort, resources into learning about security. So this is the first thing. Just consider learning. And the second thing would be to stick to best practices. So this is like the more, like I did actually refer to this a few minutes ago. It was like, you need to stick to the best practices, because you cannot learn about all the attacks that could happen. It's like millions of way right now, and millions of way that we are not aware yet. So they have, like, the hackers have a lot of incentive, they have a lot of time, and they have a lot of resource. Like, there's a lot of incentive in this. So you attack, you hack someone, take the money. It's like millions of dollars in a second. So there's a lot of incentive for them. They're going to come up with new ways. They're going to always find new ways to do that. Just like how scammers come up with new ways, just like how this always happens. Like, this is like intuitive. This is like obvious. But you cannot like learn all the how to mitigate all of the attacks. You need to stick to best practices. And during all the years that I was involved with Bitcoin, actually, this is very interesting. This may be very interesting for you, Robin. The most common thing that happens to people and lose Bitcoin is people do self-inflicted loss. It's not getting hacked or scammed. It's like people mess up something about their own wallets. This happens more than hacks. And this just reminds us of how you're not sticking, like people are not sticking to best practices and standards. Like, there's a reason there's some best practices and standards. I've seen so many people cut up their seed word, scramble the seed word, like do all sorts of adventure stuff with the seed words. I don't know, like add some kind of an algorithm to it and mess up the number. And this is like basically one of the first basic things not to do in for Bitcoin security. Just don't touch the seed. Don't change anything about it. Just stick to what the manual tells you to do. This is like I'm just going to the very basic ones. You see, it's like these are the most important things. But to get back to your question, if they have learned and if they have did all sorts of stuff like multi-signature and things like that, that's actually, like, I would say, congratulations. This is like very good amount of time and effort you put into this, and that's very good, very impressive. But you still, if the amount of Bitcoin is big, you still probably need, and you're not very comfortable, you probably still need to learn a bit more about like how this thing works, actually, the multi-signature, probably a little bit about how the math works, because like you're investing a lot, you're putting a lot of time into like setting up a multi-signature and things like that. So it's better to learn a little bit more about it and learn about all this bad things that could go wrong and just mitigate those. And I would then also consider telling these people to just go think outside of the box. It's not only about your Bitcoin, it's also about your private and sensitive information to the world. Like, you should probably run your own node. This is one of the most important things, to keep your IPs private and your addresses private to yourself. And you should probably use like good VPNs and like things that would protect data from being leaked more. And you should consider doing and reading more about OPSEC, operational security, more and more. You shouldn't talk about your Bitcoin publicly. You shouldn't let others know you have Bitcoin. I've seen like most of the cases that I was able to recover assets from were actually people from their surroundings attacking them. So it was like somebody, like a colleague, an employee, or like a friend. Sometimes friends are not friends anymore, but they do look like friends. And all sorts of things like that. Even family members, like a nephew, a niece. I've seen all sorts of stuff like this. I even seen like wives do that. So there's all sorts of things that could go wrong. So just keep your OPSEC, just keep your operational security. Don't talk about it. Don't tweet about it. Don't post addresses. Don't let the world know about your financial information. And we actually do that, like with bank accounts. We usually don't talk about like which bank we're using. We usually don't talk about what's our bank account number or something. We usually don't tell people how much balance do we have in our bank accounts. So why stop? Do this for Bitcoin too. So Bitcoin is not very different from that. It's the same model, and you need to keep the information about it private. And also, you need to consider that Bitcoin may be even more of a lucrative kind of an asset for people who think of attacking or like hacking or scamming, because it's easier for the scammer and the hacker to move the funds around and try to obfuscate the path. So you should like consider operational security very, very good. It's just like very obvious. In the future, we're going to have much more attacks coming from the surroundings because Bitcoin would gain more and more value.
I love that you put out the first point of self-inflicted loss, and I see people building mazes for themselves that they cannot figure out later. And it's very unfortunate, but also a good message that this is the most common one, how people lose their Bitcoin, because then we can go back to the basics. Because why do people build mazes? I usually found that they are scared that someone hacks them, that they're scared that someone finds the Bitcoin and like gets them, and they are getting hacked, scammed, whatever. And that's why they are building scams so good that they not even themselves can hack them. So getting back to the basics and not building a maze for yourself and doing self-custody, doing multi-signature, and all those things, and maybe have different layers. If you're one of the people that move Bitcoin around a lot, have like a second wallet where it's easily acceptable. And then one where you have your long-term savings in there and stuff like that. And if you actually, as a question for you, if you have, and I think you also mentioned, maybe I'm imagining that you worked in the past with, or also now with high net worth individuals. Do you recommend of having many different self-custody setups from a certain point onwards, where you just like have diversify on like, oh, I have the multi-signature, I have different multi-signatures, I have a single sig, and all those different wallets to further protect against attacks?
Yeah, this is actually a very, very good question. So what what people need to know is that so one part of like me saying that you need to learn more or getting like receive education or and also consulting, it would be to just evaluate if you need what you need for your setup. So there's all sorts of tools out there, great tools. Like I have actually a lot of like hardware walls just here sitting. Like I do a lot of testing all the time, and there's so many good tools out there. There's not no single thing that will rule them all. And you need to see what works best for you and for your situation. That's why you need to learn constantly. So you say like, okay, I have a family office. I need multiple people to get access to multiple stuff. So now you need to do some kind of a multi-sig. So it's like you cannot do single sync where there's some kind of a collaborative custody or a shared custody. So this is like I am trying to make the point that based on your special and unique situation, you may come into like I have this experience of consulting an individual there was like he wanted to do multisig, but he wanted to do multisig in a way that even he himself cannot access his coins like easily if he wants to. And I was like, this is kind of strange. Why do you need that? It was like, I don't live in a very, very safe environment. So I don't want like if people find out I have Bitcoin, they would like $5 wrench attack me into giving them my Bitcoin. I would like to not be able to give them my Bitcoin. So this was like quite interesting to see like some people do require even more than just multi-signature. And like there's all sorts of other stuff like for companies, businesses, treasuries, like inheritance situations also. There's all sorts of arbitration stuff that could happen that you probably need solutions for them for those ones too. So there's all sorts of stuff that you could consider based on your specific scenario. But if you're the average Bitcoiner, I would say that yeah, it is better to separate your hot wallet from your cold storage. Cold storage, it has the name on it. It's gonna be cold. It's not gonna be accessed often. And there's this thing about like human beings generally that they prefer the easy method. So if you want to do a very secure thing, and if it's not easy, they're not gonna follow it. They're gonna ignore it. They're gonna forget about it. They're gonna stop using the very secure method that is not easy to use. So let's keep the not very easy method of cold storage on its own and keep a hot wallet, like not a hot wallet actually like an exchange or something, but let's keep a wallet on your phone with significantly less amount of Bitcoin on it just for your daily spends probably, or I don't know, whatever you do with your Bitcoin and you spend it, you trade it, you do what, and use that one for that purposes and hope that probably in the future there will be Bitcoin vaults in the next probably 5 years or so that would have like staging areas and rate limiting kind of wallets. So you would have a cold storage that you feel comfortable like accessing all the time, because if something bad happens to it, there's going to be a staging area where your Bitcoin stays and you could like probably cancel the transaction. But we're away from that right now at this moment. We don't have the Bitcoin actually capabilities and the abilities enabled in Bitcoin right now. Like probably in the future we will have such stuff with like some kind of a covenant proposal or something, or off-chain kind of solution. But right now at this moment, it's better to just separate the two because, well, keep the. This is actually also this also does work with digital security overall. So I've seen a lot of people they don't use their usual like the card to the bank that they have the most money on for online purchases, or I don't know, suspicious, or I don't know, like less secure and less safe, untrusted places. So they just use a card, they just top up the card with a less amount. So if something bad happens to that card, so they won't lose a lot of money. So this is just the same thing. So it does make sense, but try to keep your hot wallet on your phone kind of private, and don't let people know that you have Bitcoin.
Kind of hard with a Bitcoin podcast.
Yeah, that ship has sailed for both of us, because I've been publicly speaking about Bitcoin for so long now. So
yeah, I like to have a Bitcoin podcast, but I don't believe it in myself. I don't have Bitcoin. I still keep my euros in my bank account.
So maybe we could demotivate the attackers by saying that we actually have shitcoins, so it's not worth attacking. So keep away from us.
Absolutely. Really, really, really cool. I have a gazillion other questions, but I think we covered the bases, and I think we covered a lot. And I think the Bybit story was really interesting. And I have one question that I ask each and every one of my guests on the podcast, and the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Oh well, so that's kind of an interesting question. I was not prepared for, but this is kind of cool. So I'm actually a very passionate person about what I do. So that's what I would like tell others. It's like, be passionate about what you do. Always like just stick to what you like to do. So I've been doing like Bitcoin stuff for a long time just because like I love this. So it's just so much fun to work on Bitcoin stuff. So it's like all sorts of cool people, cool projects, cool technologies happening, and cool stuff that could happen that makes me very interested in that. And that's why I wouldn't change this for anything else. Like I wouldn't change anything about what I do, actually. That's because just I love what I do, and that's what I would like advise others to do. Like stick to what you love to do.
I love that one. I don't know if we ever had that. I think we had work on something we are passionate about, but I love that one a lot. We have end routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question, do you think we get to a Bitcoin standard peacefully?
Yeah, that's cool. No, it's not a peaceful thing. So
oh, wow.
That's what I think. So Bitcoin is some kind of a political kind of a movement. So in order to get to a lot of people using Bitcoin, has to be. So this is the thing that I think Eric Voskuil also talks about. It's Bitcoin is that's what he calls it. Bitcoin is darknet money. So it's like that's what Bitcoin is. It is here to be censorship resistant. It is here to be unstoppable, and that's what probably, let's say, governments won't like about Bitcoin, and we could like see that. And we have this trend in the last probably century or so that governments want more and more and more control into observing and doing all sorts of surveillance and control over people's money and transactions and businesses. That Bitcoin is, I think Bitcoin is a very good response to that. That you shouldn't like to go against that. And that's the case. Bitcoin, if it wants to succeed, it needs to be resilient. This is like very obvious, and it needs to be resilient against this too. And it's a constant. So I see like I may look like a dinosaur talking about this now in 2025, because in 2018, 17, we were always talking about like let's break this thing. Let's make Bitcoin break like the rules and the structures that have been put from before. And but nowadays it's not the main narrative. It's the main narrative is like number goes up, things like that, and which I don't like at all. It's like although I have a strong interest in like following up data on the Bitcoin network, I would love to see Bitcoin becoming more private. I would love to see Bitcoin thriving in a more hostile environment. So that's how transactions and businesses and deals and any kind of financial interaction should be and was for a long time. But now, in the last century or so, governments have decided that they want to control all aspects, and they do KYCs, they do all sorts of like, I don't know, verifications. To what end? It's like we still see hacks happening, we still see scams happening, we still see money laundering happening. Ask me about it. I know I've been monitoring all sorts of stuff like that. So it is obvious that it doesn't work. So that's like KYC and things like that. But what it does, actually, it puts us at a disadvantage. Us, the users, like if I want to buy Bitcoin and I need to do KYC for that, it's not going to help anything. It's going to make it worse for me because I have provided my information on a server, on a website that may be leaked later on, and I may get targeted. And so I'm putting myself at a huge disadvantage for what? For nothing, actually. So, but the governments don't think so. And I think that that's not how transactions and financial systems should work. And I think that Bitcoin will prove that at some point, and it would not go very gentle into that direction because there's going to be all sorts of people resisting, all sorts of agencies, other places resisting the fact that Bitcoin may become more private. Bitcoin may go more like in the direction of being darknet money rather than clear net money like fiats. So that's what I think. So I think it's going to be, but the thing is, it's not going to be the most difficult from Bitcoin's technology side. So we just need to just convince the right people to add more private technology on Bitcoin. That's what I think.
I love that. Absolutely. We need the number go up technology I sometimes see as a distraction, even though I know it's the best marketing tool. It's what gets people in. But if people only care about that and don't get the revolution behind it, they're easily sellable. They are easily not sellable, buyable. They're easily manipulated. Because if you are for number go up technology, you love ETFs, you love strategic Bitcoin reserves. If you like freedom go up technology, you're not in favor of, you might not be in favor of an ETF. You might not be in favor even of the strategic Bitcoin reserve because it prolongs the life of governments. And yeah, it's a wild discussion in Bitcoin, I think. And we need enough freedom fighters so Bitcoin doesn't get to be a banker's tool, but a people's tool.
Exactly. I don't want to see Bitcoin becoming something like what gold have become right now at this moment. It's just like you just can't move gold anymore. It's just you can't just put gold bars in your bag and go to whatever you want, although it is yours. So there's going to be all sorts of restrictions on that, and even probably some penalties and all sorts of things. Just think about this for a moment. And I don't want to see this for Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, what I think is that Bitcoin will not become this, because the minute it becomes like that, or actually the more it becomes like that, the more it will show as something that will resist because there's going to be more people, because it's not the same thing. It's the internet, it's digital space. There's going to be places that you could do all sorts of stuff to resist this kind of things. It's not just like airports and borders where they could just put their hands on your body and like inspect you and see if you have gold bars with you. So it's going to be different, and it's going to be resisting and more hostile than what people think. So that's what I think about it.
What a great note to end the podcast today. Really cool. Thank you so much, Seyr, for being on the podcast. Before I let you go, where can people find you and ask you questions?
Oh yeah, I'm on Twitter. I do have like a YouTube channel, podcast, but they're not very active anymore in the last 2 years or so. I have a Twitter. It's like ZIYA_SADR. That's how it is. You could probably also find me on LinkedIn too. Nowadays, sometimes I go to LinkedIn. And there's also, my Telegram. I have an active Telegram channel with a lot of members, but it's mostly in Persian, so you may not be interested in that. But you just hit me up, and Twitter, that's the best place.
Really cool. Thank you so much for being on. Also, thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.